Hey, 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 today is National Boston Cream Pie Day. Always some sort of dessert, usually for these national days, right? I don't know, I gotta be honest, I have not had Boston cream pie in so long, I don't even remember what it tastes like. I know it's kind of a cream pie, right? I don't know, I forget. But there is one thing that I do remember, and that is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer. I'm back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. I apologize, I'm a few minutes late today. Another sound sync issue. It's weird. Everything will be fine with the computer, I don't know, for, a week and a half. Then I'll check to make sure that the sound is in sync before I go live, and it's usually fine. And then today it was way off. I have no idea why. Usually it's an indicator that somehow Windows did some sort of an update on my computer against my wishes. But anyway, welcome aboard. Happy Tuesday, gang. It is October 23rd, day before my birthday. So, got a good size show for us today. I am going to be reviewing Noria from Stronghold Games. It's also from edition Spielwiese. But the English language and North American edition is from Stronghold Games. So I'm going to be doing a review of that in just a bit. Got some news as well, so we're going to dive into some of the news in just a few moments. Do want to point out two things. Number one, if you missed yesterday's show, or if you didn't happen to swing by thegaminggang.com recently, I did point out that there is the Halloween sale going on right now at Drive-Thru RPG. It's their annual sale. It's on all the drive-thru sites. And the cool thing is, not only are you saving money on some awesome PDFs, I mean, thousands and thousands of them, but there are some really cool freebies. It's kind of their trick or treat, but it's all treats. So there's some real highlights this year too, including the core rules for Kids on Bikes, which is from Hunters Entertainment and Renegade Game Studios, which just came out in PDF a month and a half ago, maybe? I mean, it's brand new. So you can get that. There's Sins of the Father from Third Eye Games. There's the holiday-themed bundle of 5e adventures from Adventure a Week. Normally, these PDFs are $10 or more, and you can get them for free right now. They are hidden. You have to find them. But if you go to thegaminggang.com, I do have a post. I list all of the drive-thru sites, and I give you all the links where you're going to find the little icons to click on to get all the free goodies. And there's about 30 of them overall. There might be a little more than 30. There are a few duplicates, but not too many. So I did want to point that out and remind everybody, don't miss out on some really cool free RPG stuff. Also, second thing is, this is a live stream. I know a vast majority of people do watch after the fact, but if you are popping in to catch the show live, there is chat. It's available on YouTube. It is not on screen. It's one of the ways that I kind of keep some of these stranger commenters at bay, but I do keep an eye on the chat. So if you want to say hello or have a question, or maybe want me to dive a little deeper into something regarding Noria when I do my review, by all means chime in and I will respond. All right, so I've got some pretty cool news, and let me grab a quick sip here. Before I get into the news, do want to mention the kitties are down here today in the Duct Tape Studios, and Smokey's always quiet. But Pinky already was kind of a little vocal this afternoon, so I'm hoping that she's napping right now, so I'm hoping she'll stay asleep for a while. All right, so let's get on into the news, because if you are a fan of Carcassonne, and I happen to be a big fan of Carcassonne, I love it as an introduction game to people who've never played games. There is a brand new Carcassonne on the horizon from Z-Man Games, and I have the dope on Carcassonne Safari. The lion roars from the shadows of the baobab tree. I have no idea what that is. As the zebra darts past, the ground shakes with the thunderous footfalls of elephants. Looking through your binoculars, you zoom in on the towering giraffe, slowly lowering its neck to the edge of a pool of clear water. The watering hole is key to survival under the sweltering African sun. You wait patiently, excited to see even more animals on your safari. Travel to the African savannah and experience the classic tile-laying game with a new twist in Carcassonne Safari. From the mischievous monkey to the proud lion, many different species of animal roam the African savannah. With 72 land tiles and 50 animal tiles, you and your fellow safari goers will have a lot of ground to cover to see the diverse wildlife scattered around the plains. Climb the baobab tree to get a bird's eye view. Walk the trails and spot the animals hiding in the bush. Blaze new trails with the ranger vehicles and dig watering holes where wildlife can peacefully gather. Yeah, okay. With a lion around? I don't know about that. With the heat of the sun beating down, even the fiercest predators will pause to share the watering hole. As you continue exploring the plains, help the local wildlife by digging or expanding a watering hole. After placing a tile, you can choose to start digging a watering hole instead of placing a meeple. After the watering hole has been started, each new animal tile will score points. The second tile will score 4 points, the third will score 5, and the final tile will score 6. Since the watering hole is a gathering place for many creatures, it can only be completed by placing 4 different animal tiles. Once complete, the owner of the watering hole will score 3 points. Carcassonne Safari is for 2 to 5 players, ages 7 and up, plays in around 30 minutes, and will carry an MSRP of $39.99 when it arrives later this year. This sounds pretty fun, I have to admit. Usually, like the Carcassonne, you'll see a new Carcassonne release and it's just kind of an expansion to the base game, and I gotta be honest, that is a property that has kind of been beaten to death, but this is an all-new game, so pretty cool, and I think the smaller gamers out there will get a kick out of it because you've got all those animals. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for Carcassonne Safari when it arrives in late Q4. I know it's supposed to be out this year. That is the indication from Z-Man Games. They have not revealed a release date just yet. All right, so fans of miniatures out there and Games Workshop will be excited to know that Games Workshop has a new standalone Warhammer 40k based game, and it's arriving very shortly. And here's the dope on Speed Freaks. Engines rev, power cells whine, saw blades spin, and loading mechanisms snap chunky shells into deadly experimental weapons. Mechs make last-minute adjustments with hammers and wrenches. The Speed War is on. Speed Freaks is a game for 2 or more players. Each player commands a speed mob of orc wagons and war bikes in a high-speed, adrenaline-fueled combat. You'll need to customize your vehicles and pull off daring maneuvers to win, but that isn't easy when your team consists of velocity-addicted green-skin maniacs. Players take turns picking models to move, shoot, and attack up close, aiming to destroy their rival racers and become the greatest speed mob in the galaxy. The game includes models for 2 wagons, the Shock Jump Dragsta and the Custom Boosta Blasta, and 6 warbikes, cards with model stats, player dashboards and screens, custom Speed Freaks dice, movement tiles, a range ruler, a deck of damage cards, 4 scenarios, and more. There's actually some pretty cool looking terrain pieces in this as well. Speed Freaks, as I mentioned, is for 2 or more players. It's going to carry an MSRP of $150. Pre-orders are being taken right now, and according to the Games Workshop website, those pre-orders will begin shipping on October 27th. Of course, it's across the pond, so if you're putting a pre-order in, it's probably going to take a bit of time for you to get that here in the US. But kind of cool to see a brand new orc-related racing game, although I have to admit, maybe I'm wrong, but I could have swore they had a very similar game to this back in the 90s, kind of mid-1990s-ish, where it was kind of like different bands of orcs with their vehicles fighting it out. I might be wrong, but I could have sworn that was the case. But kind of cool. I don't know. MSRP seems a little high on this. But, of course, you can use these war bikes and the big custom vehicles in Warhammer 40k, too. So, pretty cool. All right, moving right along. Starling Games had a Kickstarter that they rolled out, I want to say it was last week. And they pulled it. It has been revamped. It's got a new title, new price tag, and I've got the dope on Anomaly. Left 4 Dead, 3 young students fight for their lives against an unknown entity. The creature, if that is what it is, seems to learn and evolve to counter their every move. They must hunt it down and destroy it before it finds them first. Anomaly is a hidden movement, deduction, and combat game for 2 to 4 players. Players in this game are divided into 2 teams. One player is the Anomaly, while the other players are the students. The goal of each team is to eliminate the other by depleting their health pool. Students share a collective health pool. All students in the Anomaly execute their movement behind a player's screen, so it's rare to know exactly where another player is. Students will try to signal their location to the other students using location hint cards, and the Anomaly in turn will use these cards to triangulate the students' positions. The Anomaly needs to feed to stay alive, either on the fuel or these students themselves. The students will be working to destroy the Anomaly's fuel sources and to damage it with improvised weapons like traps and stun batons. The students have cards with abilities on them that let them attack or take other actions. However, when they use one of these actions, they must give that card to the Anomaly. The cards have an inverse ability for the Anomaly that will give it new powers like Possess or Teleport. If the Anomaly gets enough cards, it will also be able to evolve and develop even more powerful abilities. The game ends when the health pool for either the Anomaly or the students is depleted. So there is a new video from Starling Games for this new Kickstarter. It's not very long, a couple minutes or so. So let's kick back and check out Anomaly.
You are ready to take the next giant leap in your potential. Reach beyond the limits of Earth-based science education. Join us at the Taurus Institute, the state-of-the-art education research facility for physics, engineering, biology, and artificial intelligence. Now accepting applications for fall 2143. The Taurus Institute. Explore everything. Be anything. Fear nothing.
We're ready to take the next giant leap in your potential.
Join us at the Taurus Institute, state-of-the-art education research facility for physics, engineering, biology, and artificial intelligence. Now accepting applications for fall 2143. Taurus Institute. Explore everything. Explore everything. Be anything.
Anomaly is for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 30 to 45 minutes, and you can reserve a copy of the base game and any unlocked stretch goals. I forget if there's stretch goals or not, to be honest. I thought maybe there weren't. I thought it was just the game. Maybe I'm wrong. Because this was actually entitled Zero Fear Nothing originally. Anyway, but through November 8th, you can reserve a copy of the game for $39.99. So they dropped the price down. So if I remember correctly, I think originally the game, when it was called Zero Fear Nothing, I think it was $50. And I remember when I got the press release, the press information from Starling Games, from Brennan Noonan, I should say, over there, I thought, this is kind of an odd title for this game, because it's like zero, the number 0, and then it's like Fear Nothing. And it was kind of like, I don't know, it sounds kind of odd. I mean, it sounds like a cool game, but the title was sort of like, really? This is a little strange. So I do see that they did pull it, and then they launched it again today with a brand new title titled Anomaly. And when I looked this morning, it was at about 30% funding. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see this fund, and it does seem kind of cool. Kind of like the I like the one versus many kind of thing, but I definitely dig how the anomaly will evolve over time because it's learning from these students that it's trying to kill. So pretty sweet. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some RPG stuff, because just in time for Halloween comes the annual holiday-themed adventure for Goodman Games' Dungeon Crawl Classics. And I've got the dope on The Corpse That Love Built. I don't know who came up with that title. A level 2 adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics RPG, specifically themed for Halloween horror, the perfect October release. The town of Portnell is living in a state of fear. Several citizens have been abducted, some never to be seen again, while others are found as corpses, often with missing limbs. When a senile town priest warns that he's received a vision that the geriatric recluse Dr. Lotrin von Geisterblut is behind the abductions, there are many who do not believe the accusations. However, when the town is set upon by wicked fiends foretold in his vision, attitudes quickly change and swords are raised. Perhaps it's time to storm the castle after all. Don't forget to bring your pitchforks and torches. This level 2 adventure is a story of gothic horror which pits the characters against monstrosities created by an ancient madman. Will the characters be able to survive the macabre horrors found in the laboratories that spawned the corpse that love built? Right now you can snag the print and PDF bundle for $9.99 from Goodman Games. Although I gotta be honest, I think it would be pretty tough to get that physical book in time to run it for Halloween this year. But, that being said, you can snag the PDF from DriveThruRPG for a sale price of $4.93 because it's part of the Halloween sale over at DriveThruRPG. Honestly, I think the PDF might be the way to go, seeing that this is just a 20-page adventure, so I don't know if you necessarily need a physical book for that, even though $10 for the bundle is pretty cool. Gotta admit, I'm not super familiar with Dungeon Crawl Classics. I don't delve into a lot of the old school Renaissance role-playing games, mainly because I was around for the old school when it was new school. Maybe that's why. But I have to admit, I have seen some of the Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures. I almost call them modules. Some of the adventures, and they're always like really gonzo. They're always like really pretty wild. And of course, as you can see, this is pretty much a nod to Bride of Frankenstein. So that's kind of cool too. All right, so my final news piece is from Onyx Path Publishing. It's another role-playing game news piece. There is a new role-playing system that's available, and shockingly enough, it's not horror-related. Here's the dope on Cavaliers of Mars. Return now to dying Mars in its last age of glory, a world of flashing swords and choking sands, of winking courtesans and lantern-lit canal cities. Mars, where romance and heartbreak are two sides of the same obsidian shit. where lost cities are buried in the dunes and dry oceans stretch out between the last daring bastions of civilization, where the first Martians, the monument builders, are but a faded memory, and the red Martians have become decadent and capricious in their last days. Finding yourself digging for someone else's treasure in the lost tombs of Chiro, or spitting defiance at the roundhead priests of Wild Zigur, or dashing across the towered crypts of Vance with your long-lost lover. Lock steel with the Princess Invincible, even as your hand reaches towards your flint laser for insurance. Flint laser? Cavaliers of Mars includes a vibrant setting with cultures, careers, characters, and dozens of locations, all organized to get you right into the world of Mars. An all-new system combining your character's motivations, history, and beliefs with strategic swashbuckling action, astrology, crafting, psychic powers, and much more. This game is created by Rose Bailey. There is a video because this kick-started not all that long ago, so let's take a peek. It's no longer on Kickstarter. This is available now. Let's take a peek to find out a little bit more about Cavaliers of Mars.
Return now to dying Mars in its last stage of glory. A planet of flashing swords and choking sands, of winking courtesans and lantern-lit canal cities. Mars, where romance and heartbreak are two sides of the same obsidian chit. Where lost cities are buried in the dunes and dry oceans stretch out between the last daring bastions of civilization. Where the first Martians, the monument builders, are but a faded memory. Where the red Martians have become decadent and capricious in their last days. Find yourself digging for someone else's treasure in the lost tombs of Chiaro, spitting defiance at the round-headed priests of Wild Zigur, dashing across the towered crypts of Vance with your long-lost lover. Lock steel with the Princess Invincible, even as your hand reaches towards your flint laser for insurance.
Hi, I'm Rose Bailey, creator of Cavaliers of Mars. I've been professionally designing games for more than a decade, most notably for White Wolf's World of Darkness. Cavaliers of Mars is something different, my love letter to all of the pulp and swashbuckling literature that I love, from Fritz Leiber's Fafford and the Grey Mouser to Arturo Perez Reverte's Captain Ella Triste to Kelly Gardner's Goddess.
And I'm Audrey Whitman, senior writer. For me, Cavaliers of Mars is everything queer and absurd that I loved in Miguel de Cervantes Cortina's Don Quixote, or Johnston McCulley's The Curse of Capistrano. Romantic, death-defying, and not a little bit farcical.
It's also a distillation of my favorite kind of gaming. Exciting characters getting in over their heads, and then escaping by getting into even bigger trouble. It's got action, romance, and more than a little whimsical strangeness, all wrapped up in an easy-to-use core book that plunges you right into the world. We're opening this Kickstarter campaign to fund art, layout, and printing for the Cavaliers of Mars core book, which is already written and edited. Please join us to help create this exciting new world.
Fight, love, and defy the odds on Mars. A world of red death and haunting mysteries. A world of desperate joy and lost grandeur.
As previously mentioned, this is no longer a Kickstarter. Cavaliers of Mars is available right now. It is in PDF only at the moment from Drive-Thru-RPG and is available for $19.99. I do not have any word on when the actual physical book will be available, but this just hit a few days ago on Drive-Thru-RPG. I have to admit, I always kind of like the whole John Carter, Warlord of Mars, whole setting. Although I got to admit, the books are not all that well written, and there's that really overt racism that's involved in them. Yeah, I know. But I like the setting. That's the whole thing. I dig the setting, but there's some aspects to the novels that are kind of... And the strange thing is, there's a lot of people don't realize, I think, aren't there like 9? There are like 9 altogether, but they're not all about John Carter. Some of them are about, Deja Thoris, the princess. Some are about Deja and John Carter's son. So, kind of cool. Kind of cool. So if you'd like to jump in and do a little, Mars role playing, you don't want to have to wait for the modifious official John Carter of Mars, then definitely check this out. So pretty cool. Nice to see Onyx Path Publishing not just focusing on, World of Darkness stuff. Also, do want to point out, it's available, like I said, in PDF from DriveThruRPG, and whenever I mention DriveThruRPG, keep in mind the Gaming Gang is an affiliate. So if you are going to head over to DriveThruRPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com first, click on one of our banners. That way, if you make a purchase from any of the drive-thru sites, I get a small portion of that sale, and I keep telling everybody, it really adds up, really helps out, really helps keep the Gaming Gang around, because it mainly pays for our hosting every month. So, pretty sweet. All right, so that is it for the news today. I'm going to get into my review of Noria in just a couple of minutes. A few things that I just wanted to point out. First off, I wanted to say thanks to the people who have emailed me saying, hey, I hope you're feeling better, because I didn't have a couple episodes last week because I had kind of wrenched my back and my sciatic nerve was kind of pinched. Not like it was a few years ago, which laid me out. And that pain lasted for months. So hey, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So always nice to have, just strangers say, hey, hope you're feeling better. I feel your pain. I've had a problem with sciatic nerves before too, and it's not fun. Not at all. So just wanted to say thanks. Anyway, the other thing I want to mention is what's coming up on the shows for the rest of the week. So tomorrow's Wednesday, Wargame Wednesday, I am going to show off and do my review for Burning Lands from Flying Pig Games. I just reviewed Armageddon War last week. This is the expansion to that. I'm probably going to show off some of the other extras that are available for Armageddon War in case some folks out there are not aware that they're available, because there is a campaign game that's available, or I should say campaign add-on that's available. It's a new campaign. There's also the solitaire player pack, and that is pretty impressive. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are kind of like, oh yeah, Armageddon War looks pretty cool. Can I play it solitaire? And of course, you could. It's chit pull. It's chit activation. So you could, if you wanted to be kind of schizophrenic, because I've done that back in the past too, playing war games. Sort of like, well, I'm going to try to do what each side should be doing. But the solitaire release, the little expansion for it, really helps as far as just playing it solitaire and creating an AI for your opponent. So pretty sweet. That'll be on tomorrow's show. Thursday's show, I am probably going to talk about 5 one-shot role-playing adventures that you can bust out that are going to be perfect for Halloween. So that is most likely on Thursday, because I don't think I'll finish. I'm trying to finish up the 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade to do a review. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish it up. Then on Friday, unless things change, I am going to do my review for Shifting Realms, which is from Soaring Rhino Games. So that'll be on Friday. There is something that I'm supposed to be receiving that if I get it, I will show off an unboxing for it, because it's actually hitting stores on Friday. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. So I don't know if I'll have it before it pops out in stores or not. Might reach out to my PR contact. All right, so that's what's coming up on future episodes. Next week, I'm still kind of bouncing things around. Final thing I want to mention is in probably November, it's looking like the show is going to move to the evenings, which I should have done all along, to be honest. But I have some stuff going on where I'm going to have to be going to cardiovascular rehab, even though my heart attack was way back in March. My cardiologist really wants me to do that, and that's like 3 days out of the week. And I've got a colonoscopy coming up. That's not going to be all that much fun either. So I'm thinking of moving things to the evenings. and I'm trying to lock down specific things that I'll do each day, right? So originally, when I first launched the Daily Dope, and I think this is episode like 183 of the Daily Dope. I know, pretty amazing. But when I first originally launched the Daily Show, I was kind of looking at, I want to kind of stick to certain things each day of the week, right? So, but I've kind of fallen off of that. On Wednesdays, I do normally have wargaming stuff or conflict simulation stuff. On Thursdays, almost always do role-playing stuff. But like the Monday and Tuesday and, Friday, kind of just hodgepodge. What I'm looking to do is probably stick to like doing family games on Fridays. Mondays, I'd love to start doing miniature stuff. I don't know. It's kind of tough to get on board with miniatures companies. And then on Tuesdays, I really want to start doing interviews with people in the industry and maybe people that, the average Joe and Jane out there involved in gaming aren't real familiar with. So kind of do like a, Tuesday Talkie or Talkie Tuesdays or, whatever. So that's probably going to start hopefully before the first of the year. So anyway, some changes going on. Trying to, and then I'm trying to get some new cameras and things like that, improve the video quality. I don't know, get some different lighting, make the lighting better because the lighting's kind of off today. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Anywho, so that's what's cooking. Anyway, let me grab a sip and then we'll jump into Noria. There we go. All right, so I know most people are probably tuning in to check this out because they want to see more about Noria and kind of get my ideas and thoughts on the game. Noria is from edition Spielwiese and Stronghold Games. The game is designed by Sophia Wagner. This was a first design, I do believe. And artwork is provided by Michael Menzel. The game is for 2 to 4 players, ages 12 and up. I don't know about that age. Plays in 70 to 120 minutes, and it does carry an MSRP of $79.95. Now, this game's been out for a while. And I have to point out that I saw the game. I was talking to Stephen Bonacore over at Stronghold Games, and I was kind of taking a peek at some stuff to review, and I saw the box, right? So I was like, wow, that looks really cool. It's got a kind of a, I don't know, necessarily want to say steampunkish, but it's got sort of a kind of cool, kind of sci-fi vibe to it. Not necessarily maybe like really high-tech science fiction, maybe kind of lower tech. So I thought, wow, this looks really cool. So I was thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be, okay, I'll be very honest. I thought this was going to be a very different game than it turns out to be. Now, Stephen had pointed out that this is what he considered to be a wheel-building game, which, reality is, that's what it breaks down to. It is kind of like wheel building. So, the whole premise of Noria is that up to 4 players, it's 2 to 4 players. The players are trying to finance these projects to get victory points at the end of the game. And to do so, they have to be able to produce various different items to be able to kind of donate towards these products, or I should say projects, to score them the victory points. So I'm going to kind of tour around the board a little bit. I'm going to show off some of the stuff here. I am not going to go into a huge how to play, because I guarantee, because this game has been out for, I don't know, maybe a year-ish, 7 months, 7, 8 months. I'm sure there are loads and loads of how to plays out there that you can jump into and really kind of dive into all the nuts and bolts of the game. So anyway, having said that I had thought, and I'm going to throw my reading specs on, as I mentioned, saying, I thought this was a different sort of game. This game is very unique. Now, granted, a lot of these mechanics aren't necessarily brand spanking new, but the way it's put together is pretty interesting. Okay, so we're going to take a peek here. I have to move this down. Now, one thing I'm going to point out is this game is, if you play with 4 players, you're going to need a little bit of space on the table because you've got this main area here, right? This is the main board that all the players are going to be utilizing. Then each of the players is going to have a wheel, as well as this kind of reference board down here. Then they've also got this other little board, which they're going to have their factories and their ships and their finished products over here. And I'll kind of get into that in just a little bit. So you're going to need a bit of space because this is like your centerpiece right here. Now, these are the projects I was talking about. So they actually go from pretty much the easiest to move up the track on all the way to the most difficult. But the thing is, as we go up, you get more victory points. Now down below we have these gray cubes. So we've got the gray cubes that are underneath all 4 of these projects. And the projects are like manufacturing, research, exploration. Not manufacturing, refining, I should say. I can't remember the third one off the top of my head. Anyway, but I want to say exploration is the last one over here as I kind of bump things around. So over here, we've got these gray cubes, and these gray cubes represent the politicians of Noria, because Noria is like this floating city, and you can run across other floating cities too as you travel. But these are like the politicians. So we've got under the projects, we also have them here too. And let me push this back up here because we don't really need to see the top of this board anymore. Let's see, I'm going to zoom in just a touch so folks can see, and I'll pull this down a little bit. All right, so you'll see that we've got the 4 cubes here, and then we've got these numbers. So these numbers represent influence that you're basically like peddling influence to get these politicians on your side to be backing the projects that you are backing, the projects that you're involved in. So for an example here, if we take a look at the projects, we see these points. So we see 2, 2, 1, 1. And we'll pull this back so you can see that. So what'll happen here is as you influence these politicians, and you do this with knowledge, you're gonna earn knowledge. Hopefully you're earning knowledge. You can use your knowledge to influence these politicians. Now, funny enough, having, being born and raised in Chicago, the birthplace of political corruption, not really, but, we're famous for political corruption. And having lived in Arizona, which is also a land of tons of corruption, I kind of thought to myself, yeah, this is more like you're buying off these politicians, right? These politicians are corrupt. But the premise of this game is, is uplifting. This is not an oppressive. We're not talking about, this isn't Mistborn here, right? This is supposed to be a kind of an uplifting civilization, right? This is not some dystopian future, dystopian science fiction. So anyway, so it's kind of funny because I keep thinking of whenever I've played this, I'm like, yep, buying this one off, buying this guy off. So, but that's not how it works. You're just influencing them with knowledge, not with bribes, not with intimidation, but with knowledge. So what'll happen is as you will actually influence these politicians, you're going to move these gray cubes down and you're going to fill up these areas here. So what this will mean is, because the whole name of the game is to score the most victory points at the end of your game of Noria, and you score the victory points based on these projects and the influence that you've got with these politicians. So what'll happen here, let's say as an example, let's say I'm the red player and I'm at this point on this board and I have influenced this politician. So because of my support for this project, at this point in time, I would know I'm going to score 4 victory points from this project, because you look at the 2, so you're going to multiply 2 by 2, just like so, 2 by 2. And it's going to show you how do you move up on the project. It's going to tell you what do you need. So this is like obsidian, this is energy, this is mycelium? Yeah, I think it's called mycelium, right? So these are like the 3 basic resources that you'll be able to basically mine throughout the game. So that's why these 2 are not as valuable projects as these 2 over here. Then we've got what we consider simple components, and you'll be able to advance whenever you donate 1 of these. And then over here we've got complex components, and you'll move up this track for every 1 that you're going to donate, and you'll see it'll show you the numbers of what you need and what those victory points are going to be worth. So being really high up here, let's make sure I can stay in camera, right? So being up here and having, say, all of the politicians backing this project, that makes this a pretty valuable project. So let's say my opponent would be higher up. Let's say that my opponent's higher up this track here, but they're only getting 4 victory points for each when they multiply, as opposed to 8 victory points when you multiply. So these are more important projects. So but it is tougher for you to move up these project tracks as you play. So we've got that. So, and the way that you maneuver these politicians is by knowledge. All right, so I've got this kind of set up for a 2-player game. So I got red and yellow. So, whoops, let's put him back. Put this one back over here. All right, so as we continue to kind of take a look around, we're going to see we've got some player aids over here as well to show, exactly what's going on here. This is your track that you're going to actually, I'm going to zoom back out. You got the track here, and this is how you're actually going to track the passage of rounds in the game, which I thought was kind of odd that they've got these various different little punch out tokens that you cover these up with. It also shows, okay, so you're going to get 16 rounds in a 2-player game, 15 rounds in a 3-player game, and 14 rounds in a 4-player game. And then if you flip it over, it's got a 10 times on it, which basically, as you're gaining resources in that, you can actually just utilize that to say, oh, yes, I've got 10 of that, as opposed to having, 10 of these counters sitting in front of you, because there are more of these counters. I just wasn't going to throw all of them out here in big piles because we just don't necessarily need it. One thing I have to point out is that I thought this was a kind of little strange that this is just, you got to cover these up. I would have thought normally you would have just a track and that you would just have one counter moving up the track to pretty much, show, okay, so this is the progress here. Because what'll happen is, as this game progresses, influencing these politicians will become much more expensive. It takes more knowledge for you to be able to influence them to back the projects that you're looking for them to back. All right, as we continue to move along, these are the different actions. So building the wheel, you're building the wheel with different actions you're going to be able to take on your wheel, and everybody's wheel will eventually be different. The first time you play, you're going to want to set up the wheel as it shows in the rule book itself. But once you become familiar with the game, you do have options to custom craft your starting wheel. Now, of course, the way you drop off these little tokens into the wheel is going to be completely up to you. So this is the area here of the city where you can actually receive more actions to fill in your wheel. Once again, I don't have all the tokens on here. Just threw some of them on here just so people have an idea. Then we go down here and it's going to show us that, all right, so this floating city here, where this like little floating island, is where your ambassadors reside. And your ambassadors, you will send your ambassadors out to visit other little floating cities, or floating towns, I guess we'll say. As you travel around, you'll get to actually explore and find new floating areas for you to actually cultivate different things. And I'll get to that in just a minute. So each of the players is, well, see, I keep knocking things over with my arm. So I'm going to move that up, put those over there for now. So every player is also going to have this little board here where they're going to track their ships. Everybody's going to start with a ship of each of the 3 basic resources. And then they're also going to have 7 factories. Now, building factories can sometimes unlock more knowledge for you as well. And remember, the knowledge is actually, it's represented by these little gear tokens. The knowledge is actually a very, very important commodity resource in the game. Very, very important, because remember, the only way you can influence these politicians to back your projects is by spending the knowledge. All right, so let's move on to the wheel. Let's pick this up. Let's try to see if I can kind of zoom in a little bit more on this. Okay, yeah, there we go. We got it centered. All right, so taking a look at the wheel here. So it's pretty wild how this is set up. So this is what the wheel looks like, just with nothing on it, okay? So we see we've got these little prongs on the bottom of it. So what these prongs actually do is they actually fit into this little kind of player aid board underneath. That's going to show you, oh, okay, so that's what the city means. Oh, so that's what the tool means. Oh, that's what these resources mean. Oh, that's what I get to do when I travel. That's the bonus. That's what I get to do with the bonus icon. So one thing I do want to point out is these pop off really easily, these 3 levels of this wheel. So when you're moving it, because you're going to turn this wheel, you want to make sure that you're not like lifting it up, because it's really easy to see these little action tokens pop out, and then you're sitting there going, now wait a second, I could have swore, what happened to my travel action? Where did that go? So what's going to happen is every turn, so you need to line this up. So every turn, what you're going to do is, or every round, I know, I always say turns, I'm old school, sorry. So every round, what you're going to be doing is you're going to actually be rotating each of these levels of the wheel. Each of the 3 levels of the wheel. Now, as far as taking actions, you can only take actions from things that are on the lower portion of the wheel, right? That's where you see where the board is. So where it's got to be on the board, it's got to be lower down, right? It's got to be on the bottom half of the wheel for you to be able to take these actions. So if they're up here, you can't take these actions. So when you're first setting up your wheel, you got to keep in mind that you're going to see stuff that, like, say, for an example, here, being able to get the obsidian. Yeah, you're going to be able to mine obsidian if you do that. But this is going to rotate just like so, right? And then you're not going to be able to do this again for a while. And of course, because you can go and get more actions to fill in your wheel, it is going to take a little bit of time for you to ramp up on your wheel. And like I said, eventually everybody's wheel is going to be a little bit different. Nobody's going to have the same wheel. And I like that. I really kind of like how you can kind of custom craft what you want to do. So let me put it back just like this. So, see, as I keep knocking stuff over. So, one of the interesting aspects of the game is that during your phase, during your round, you can take actions, and you can take as many actions as you can if those actions are all adjacent to each other. So, as an example here, these two actions are adjacent. So they are adjacent actions. So I could get the mycelium. Yeah, it's mycelium. I keep forgetting. I mean, it's got all these kind of oddball names. So we got the mycelium, which is one of the base resources, and then we got the obsidian. So if I've got both of these together, I'm going to be able to do both of those actions. Now, if I've got something where it's all divided up, then it looks like everything's kind of set up where I would have things lining up. But what will eventually happen is you'll eventually get things where it's sort of like, this would be a good example. Kind of like this. Damn, this thing's popping out because I got these other tokens underneath. Where now I don't have things lined up. So that would mean, okay, so I get an option. I can take the action here, which there is no action. I can take this action here, which would be to travel. This action here, which would be to, the tool means I get to upgrade. I get to upgrade one of my actions. So basically what that means is, let's say if I upgrade this, I flip it over, that shows, okay, so this is an upgraded action. I get to take that twice. That's what I get to do. I get to take that twice whenever I decide I'm going to take that action. So what you're going to try to do is, as the game progresses, as you're building this wheel, you're going to try to lay things out so that you'll have more opportunities for things to line up, like so. So, as an example, let's say it was the first time I have to turn this, so I'm going to go like this. So you turn that, then this would get a turn, like so. And then this one turns 180 degrees each time. So in my next round, in this round here, I would be able to I could go to the city, and I could go and get the resource. See, because these are considered to be adjacent to each other. This isn't. This is blank. There's nothing there. So I could either do these two actions, or I could just do this one action, which is that tool to upgrade any one of my actions that I've got. So let's say, for an example, I decide I'm going to go to the city. So what the city allows you to do is, see, as I pick this up, everything's going to go flying again. So let's see if I can just lift that up and move this out. And then I'm going to zoom back out. Yeah, like I said, a little tricky with the wheel as far as these things kind of popping out. What would have been nice is if this had been a little bit higher. If this had been just this part right here, just been a little bit higher, and then there had been another thing where you could just kind of like snap in there or plug in there to kind of hold things in place. Would have been nice. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but you just got to be careful when you're turning your wheel, and don't be moving your wheel around a bunch. Otherwise, you're going to send your little actions scattered all over the place. So one of the main things that you're going to do when you go to the city is you're going to get more actions. And as far as these actions go, the basic actions here, these basic resource gathering actions, they are free. So when you go to the city, you're going to take your guy, you're going to go, yeah, okay, that's where I'm going. I'm heading here. And you're going to be able to take either one of these three for free. So these are the gathering the resources. And then you've got other actions down here that you'll have to pay for. So you've got an option of paying 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the basic resources to be able to get one of these actions. And these actions can be randomized down here. They're not always, doesn't always go tool, travel, city, bonus action. You could have the bonus action being number 1. Just, you can kind of do it randomly as far as taking care of that. But it's one of the things that you're going to do in the city. Of course, influencing the politicians is important as well. But when you're trying to ramp up your wheel, you are going to go and you are going to spend time going into the city. So I've already explained what the tool does. The tool allows you to upgrade your actions, which basically means you get to take that action twice when you choose it. The other thing, travel here is pretty wild because you're going to have, remember I was talking about these other like floating towns? So we've got these floating towns. Now in a 2-player game, you're going to randomly take 5 of them. You're just going to kind of shuffle these up. You're going to shuffle them up. And whenever you take a travel action, you're going to reveal what this is. So I'm going to zoom in once again so we can kind of take a peek at this and I don't have to sit there, you know, climbing up, holding this up. So let me zoom back in a little bit. Oop, too far. There we go. Okay. So what this is going to show is it's going to show what ships are available. Okay, so these are the different ships. So that's the Obsidian ship. This is an energy ship. And this is the mycelium ship. So what this basically means is this is how you gather the resources. Now remember I pointed out that each player is going to start the game with one of these ships of each type. You got one of each type. So by going to these other floating towns is how you can earn more of these ships. So what'll happen is, depending on how many players you're playing with, so you might see that if you're playing in a 2-player game, you're going to have fewer ships. So let's just assume that we're going to follow the instructions how this is. So it's basically showing us that just like so. So one of the options would be, so like for an example, in a 2-player game, you'd only have like that. You're going to have one of each. So when somebody travels, when they travel, they're going to be able to choose, what do they want to do? Do they want to get one of these ships and add it to their supply of ships, which is basically saying that, okay, so if I've got another one of these, every time I do that obsidian action, I'm now going to get an extra obsidian for having this ship. Just like this, I would get extra energy. So that's an option you can do. Or you can decide, hey, I'm going to build one of my factories. And this will show what do these factories provide you. So, for an example, we've got the sails, we've got the lanterns. Now remember, the whole premise of this game is having these resources, having these like products that you're donating to the city towards these projects to eventually earn the victory points at the end of the game. So if you've invested in the final track, for an example, that uses the lanterns, you're gonna probably want to build a factory here. If you have the third project with the sails, you may want to put a factory here. So what I would do is, okay, so if I decide I want to build a factory, I could drop it down there. So the first thing you're going to do, if you're building a factory, you're going to look, so you see we've got 2 and then we've got 1. So we got the 2 and the 1. You're going to drop your factory down on one of these 2s because it's going to earn you warehouses. So let's say, for an example, I'm doing the lantern. So these are the warehouses, just like this. And it's going to show you, hey, these are the resources that you need to be able to create a lantern. So you can create a lantern with 2 energy and an obsidian. So you've got these warehouses. So these warehouses are actually going to go on the side of your other little board, which I'll show you in a sec. So first time you go travel, you're going to be able to draw one of these floating towns, and you're going to put it out on the board. And I'll zoom back out. All right, so as I mentioned, remember I'm talking about these warehouses. These warehouses are going to actually go like this, like up here. They're going to go here on your board. So you know, okay, I've got these available to me up here, and that's what my resources. I'm eventually gathering my different resources from my little ships. And I'm trying to use these resources to either finance these less important projects, or I'm using these resources to make simple or complex components, which are the products that I donate to move up on these tracks as well. All right, so we've got that. So we'll have these all around the board. So you can, when you travel, let's say I was the red player. I take my ambassador. This is the ambassadors down here that I just moved out to the side because I keep knocking them over. And I would actually have moved my ambassador there, and then I decide what I want to do. And then I go, okay, I'm building one of my factories. Now on my board here, it shows, hey, I've got knowledge. So I gain a knowledge for doing that. Now, knowledge can also be used to manipulate your wheel. So you can actually spend knowledge to rotate one of the bands, one of the levels of your wheel as well. Usually the knowledge is more important to be spent influencing the politicians, but it can, sometimes you want to spend the knowledge just to kind of line things up better as far as your actions. So anyway, so let's say the yellow player, they decided their action was going to be travel as well. So their option would be that they could choose to go and visit a new floating town, or they could say, okay, well, I'm going to this floating town, which we've already discovered, and I'm going to take that same action that the red player took. Either build a factory, this time looking for sales, or taking one of these available ships. And what you'll eventually do, let's say for an example, I've got this ship over here. You're just lining these up on your board here so that you know, okay, so whenever I have the energy action, which is right there, I'm going to get 2 energy to add to my bankroll, my resources, my collection here. And that, in essence, is kind of how the game plays. You're gonna be moving around your wheels. You're gonna be looking to hopefully line these up so that you can take multiple actions. You're gonna be going to the city so that you can go and get these actions. So you're gonna buy these actions. But everything you're trying to do is just basically driving everything to be able to move further up on these different projects. And one of the cool things is, right off the bat, one of the first things you get to do on your first round, your first turn, is you get to actually place one of your cylinders there on one of the projects. Absolutely free. You don't have to spend the resources or components to get on that track. So when you have multiple players, you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be like, okay, I definitely want to influence the politicians here because this is my track. I want to have that multiplier. So, if you had all of these, you're going to be multiplying this by 16 for your victory points. That is a lot of victory points. That is big time victory points. Something else that you can do is you can actually spend to remove politicians. So, for an example, on this track here, yellow player, well, I'm gonna get rid of one of those politicians there, so that we know that that's the best they can ever get off of this would be a multiplier of 9. So that's something you can do as well during the game. Another thing to point out, this is like the first player marker, first player. That never moves, never changes. You got the first player and that's it. You're never gonna, rotate that around, so somebody's always the first player. So what you'll do is, eventually you're gonna go through, and you're gonna be removing these little tokens here as game progresses until you finally have taken all of them. And then there's like a special event here during this in between these two. So eventually you're gonna have all these taken off. You don't have any more of these tokens here, and that's going to activate the end game, when all you're going to simply do is multiply the factor down here by this number up there to determine the victory points. Another aspect to point out too is that if you end up coming onto a project behind someone else on the track, it's more expensive for you to move up. So if you're the leader on that track, you're in a good position where you're only having to spend what it says to be able to move up. In a 4-player game, this can get a little hectic up here. In a 4-player game, the politicians are a big deal as well. In a 2-player game, you're still messing around with the politicians and you're influencing them to back the projects that you're backing, but it really comes into play a lot more when you've got 4 players. And we've played 2 games as 2 players, and granted you are influencing the politicians in that, but you're never like at a point where it's like, oh well, crap, I'm kind of screwed because of the other player messing around with my politicians. Because with just 2 players, you can kind of go back and forth. Oh yeah, take a little of that. You want some of this? Take some of that. Okay, how about a little of this? One thing I do want to point out is that there isn't a lot of player interaction. This is a Euro game, so most Euro games, not necessarily always played in a vacuum, but some of them are kind of like being played in a vacuum. You're mainly going to be concerning yourself with what you're doing. Of course, you're going to keep an eye on your opponents as far as what projects they're backing, what politicians that they're influencing. But all in all, you're really just focused on what you're going to be doing during your turn, or what you're going to do in your upcoming round. So, as I mentioned, all in all, the whole premise is you're doing all these different things simply so you can put the various different components or resources up here so you can keep moving up the track, as well as using your knowledge to influence these politicians and move these cubes, so that when the game finally ends, you are going to have the most victory points because of where you're at on the projects and the politicians that have backed them and what the multiplier is. And that pretty much is the game in Noria. Which is kind of funny because I'm like, well, I'm not going to go into the whole, how to play, and I sort of did kind of go into how to play. So, but anyway. All right, let me grab a sip here and give you my overall thoughts on the game. So, I think it plays much better with more players. 2 players was okay. 4 players, I thought was pretty fun. I'm going to point out that Noria is not going to be for everybody. There are going to be gamers out there that are not going to like this game. It's kind of thinky. It's kind of puzzly, especially building that wheel, kind of putting things together so things line up in a certain way. I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, some people may not dig that. Like I said, might be a little too much thought process. Also, there's not a lot of interaction going to be going on with the players at the table, simply because you're going to spend a lot of your time looking at your wheel, try to figure out, okay, so when this comes around again to me, what do I plan on doing with this? So it's kind of like, all right. So, so if you're used to games where there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of, like, you know, talking schmack between the players and that, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of that in this title. I liked it. I think it's pretty cool. Some of the gang weren't too keen on it. So, theme-wise, I like the artwork. The components are pretty nice. That wheel, I wish there was that little piece, some sort of little piece to keep the wheel together so that the different levels don't pop off. The theme really, it's just kind of tacked on. I mean, it's got, like, you know, the floating towns and the floating city and the different ships and stuff like that. And the artwork is cool, but the theme doesn't come out in the mechanics whatsoever. I mean, it could be anything. It could be a mine, and you could be, you know, just a mine. It could be anything. That said, still an interesting game, and I liked it. I really did like it. So I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I definitely give Noria an 8.2. Keeping in mind, it's not going to be for every gamer. Those people who like a lot of, like, take that back and forth between the players, not really. If you kind of dig the fact that you're kind of doing your own thing, and then you can kind of sit there and plot what you're going to do when it comes around to your round again, then by all means, I would say definitely check it out. All right, so that is it for today's show. Once again, on tomorrow's show, I will be taking a closer look and reviewing Burning Lands for Armageddon War from my friends over at Flying Pig Games, as well as some of the add-ons that are available as well. So, as I always like to point out, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, feel free to go to thegaminggang.com for the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I'll be back tomorrow, so enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.